welcome to a sweltering episode of Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that chats about romance novels usually $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman, and not only am I hot and bothered because I am recording this intro during a heat wave, I am hot and bothered in a positive way because today it's time for another Hot as Hell with TSTL. These are special, spicy episodes where I chat with authors about their latest releases that are hot off the presses and horny off the presses. And the sizzling author here to just fire things up is none other than Hayley Fleming. Her debut romance novel, Thighs Wide Shut, is out now. It is a hilarious friends to lovers second chance romance where the main character experiences a sexual health issue that is personal to me and a lot of people, and that is chronic pelvic and vulvovaginal pain. But like we mentioned in the interview, the book is very fun and very funny. I definitely laughed a little too loud when I was reading it during a silent book club event in my neighborhood. So, we'll see if I'll be allowed back at the next one. I also want to say, if you're listening to us talk during this episode, we're talking about pelvic pain and you're thinking oh, I'm experiencing similar symptoms, but I'm unsure what to do or how to get information, I did include a link in the show notes that is a patient resources page that is provided by an advocacy group that I've actually volunteered with called Tight Lipped. I feel like it's a great starting point if you're just I don't know where to begin. It is very comprehensive. It is easy to navigate. Just visit tightlipped.org/patient-resources. Again, that's tightlipped.org/patient-resources. Again, the link is also in the show notes. All right, I hope your personal fans are turned up to high because you're about to get scorched with a simmering interview. Please enjoy author Hayley Fleming getting hot as hell with TSTL. My goodness, Hayley Fleming, welcome to Too Stupid to Live.
Thank you. I'm feeling too stupid to live.
Thank you. Finally a guest who feels what I feel. You're feeling too stupid to live, as are we all, but you should also be feeling proud of yourself because you have a new book out.
Yes, proud, excited, in disbelief, imposter syndrome, excitement, all of these things. I'm feeling them.
Yes, all of the emotions. I don't want to just dive in and be tell me your life story, but do you want to give us a quick tell us what the book is about, give us a quick the elevator pitch, if you will.
Absolutely. So the book, Thighs Wide Shut, that's the title. It follows a character named Emma, who I like to say is going through her quarter life crisis. She has just moved from Florida to Boston, which is where she went to college. So it's she's going back to Boston kind of for the second time. And she inadvertently reconnects with this guy, Harrison, who was formerly her best friend in college. But then they got into a big fight at the end of college and haven't talked for the last 5 years. And so suddenly she kind of has this second chance to know him. She was very in love with him in college and he was in love with her. But Emma has a condition called vaginismus, and she doesn't know how to talk about it. And it makes it really difficult for her to date. And she just doesn't know how to deal with that. And so when she has this kind of second chance at the same thing, the same friendship. She's still in love with him. She kind of figures out how to do it differently this time. And so the book is about second chances. It's about relearning people who you used to know very well, but now do not know well anymore. And it's about doing right by yourself.
Yes, and especially by doing right by yourself. I feel
Yes.
vaginismus, for anyone who doesn't know, is a pelvic pain condition where it's involuntary spasms of your pelvic floor. I
Hmm.
have it. A lot of people have it, and I do think that what's so great about this book is that personally, I feel there are opportunities that I'm getting deep right away. Sorry.
No, let's do it. Let's get
There
into
are
it.
opportunities that I think I let get away because of the condition, especially like,
Absolutely.
I went to school in Boston. I was starting to have sex in Boston, and then I was just like, whoa, pushing people.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
is like this nice story. It's beyond just a second chance romance. I think it's like something that like a lot of people who have chronic pelvic pain and have to deal with this, like it also is giving them a happily ever after too, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. It was really important to me that this book kind of told two different stories. So, like, there's a love story with Harrison, and then there's also this story of her, like, dealing with this medical condition that she has and figuring out, like, what motivation she needs to deal with it and, like, what steps she needs to go through to make it better. And at the beginning of the book, she kind of thinks that those are two connected journeys. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, like I have this second chance where I could actually date Harrison, like if I get my act together and figure out my vaginismus. And then by the end of the book, Emma and hopefully the reader has to learn that those are two very separate journeys. Like Harrison and being in love with Harrison cannot be her motivation to figure out her medical problems. And like that's really messed up. And by the end, she realizes that. So it was important to me that no one finished the book being like, she fell in love with the right man and then her vagina opened up. Like, that is
Right.
not what happens.
Yes, which is
Two
so
separate journeys.
yes, which is so good. Like an HEA doesn't mean P in V. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like it's actually it's quite nice because like I feel like at again from my experience I was always doing physical therapy or like
Hmm.
whatever every little thing that I ever did, which was a lot. It was always for my partner. It was never for me. And I think it's like a common misconception, especially like with it like I blame society, of course, because like there is such an emphasis on our partner's pleasure during sex, and
Yeah.
like for centuries, like there is a precedent there. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think, a lot of readers, not just readers with vaginismus, will understand where Emma is coming from. Um, because, even though she has people in her life who are able to say, like, Emma, like, P and V sex is not the end all be all. Like there are other ways you can be intimate with someone. She still has this hold up where she's like, well, I've had guys reject me before because I wouldn't have P and V sex with them. And so I think a lot of us can kind of understand what she's going through and the expectations that are put on her and why she has a hard time letting go of those expectations.
Right, totally. So can you tell me how you came up with the character of Emma? Like, what was your brainstorming process for her? And I guess maybe like how much of you like how much of you as a person are in Emma and
Yeah.
Harrison?
I think when I first started writing the novel, so what you read as a finished copy is like draft 12 or 13. The
Hmm.
first one or two drafts were a lot closer to my experience. And then I was like, no, I want Emma to be more chaotic. I want to put her in a lot of like worse situations than what I had to deal with. Like we got to
Hmm.
up the conflict here. So
Sure.
like Emma finds herself in situations that I would never allow myself to be in
Hmm. Hmm.
because she's just kind of a chaotic person. And so I think by the end of the writing process, I personally am a lot more like Harrison, the main male character. He's a pushover. He lets Emma walk all over him at times. I'm so like that in my real life. And so Emma herself is, I would say, not very much like me, other than the fact that we share this condition. And I did find it really powerful to kind of get to write about my experience through the lens of somebody else's eyes and doing that writing, forced me to do a lot of research about the condition that I wasn't
Hmm.
necessarily doing when I was diagnosed with it. So it was very much a learning process for me and very therapeutic to do that.
Yeah, because it kind of reminds me like there's a part in the book where she knows her diagnosis, but she actively refuses to Google it, and
Hmm.
it's not until like you find yourself when you're like forced in a situation to be like, oh, I should know more about this given it's my body,
Absolutely.
but there is that avoidant kind of thing because it is just such a hard path to navigate.
Exactly. And one of the ways you can develop vaginismus, or one of the factors is a lack of sex education.
Mm-hmm.
So part of Emma's backstory is that she grew up in Florida in the public school system and did not receive good sex education. She received like maybe 2 hours in her entire childhood. And so she just doesn't understand her body and therefore kind of fears it. And that all feeds into why she developed this condition. And so it very much is in line with her character that when she finally does learn what this is called, she's like, I can't even Google that. Like, I can't know about that. Because even if she did Google it, it would probably be using terms that she wasn't familiar with. Like, she doesn't know what the parts of her reproductive system are like. And so she has to kind of go through her own learning process and finally meet with medical professionals who sit her down and are like, this is what is going on in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so that's a really important journey for her.
Yeah, totally. It feels like, people who have this condition, like there is a commonality, but I think there's also kind of like a nuance. Like we all feel our pain in a different way. We all go through our
Hmm.
own individual journeys. So like, how did you like come up with like Emma's journey, making it kind of original and unique, but also kind of universal?
Absolutely. I think there are a couple things that I did to make sure that this would appeal to readers, not just readers who have vaginismus.
Right. Hmm.
The first is that a big part of Emma's character and her relationship with Harrison is that she constantly just doesn't feel like she's enough. She doesn't feel like she would be a good enough partner. She feels like he deserves better. And for her, that stems from this medical condition. But I think a lot of women can relate to that, being like very hard on themselves in relationships, letting expectations beat them down. And so I've heard from readers who do not have vaginismus that they still found this really relatable and that her experiences dating still felt like something that a lot of us have experienced. So that was one thing. The other thing that was really important to me in this novel was to make it funny, especially in the parts that you would not think of as being funny. So like
Hmm.
there are scenes where she's in pelvic floor therapy and where she's talking about the way her body works, where I wanted to make it as funny as possible so that it was digestible to the reader. So
Yes.
hopefully that worked. I laughed when I wrote it, so
No, it's so funny you say that because like I actually like that was going to be my next question of like, oh
yeah.
wait, we should tell them that this is a rom com. This is a,
It
you
is.
know what
It's
I mean?
yes, rom-com heavy, heavy on the com.
Yeah, heavy on the com. But like, how did you like? Do you think that like it was? Talk about like balancing out kind of like, okay, let's get serious. This is a real thing. Let's be true to her character and authentic to the
Hmm.
experience versus like we're gonna throw in some comedy here. Like how was that balancing out?
I think it all had to come from a place of Emma's voice.
Hmm.
Um, and I set out for her voice to just be like you're listening to someone overshare for 300 pages. Like she's
Yes, yes. Uh
she's
huh.
oversharing to her friends, she's oversharing to herself. Like she does not need to be thinking all those thoughts about herself, but she just has this constant loop of like overthinking and oversharing.
Hmm.
And I think for Emma, like in her voice, that comes out as funny sometimes. She's, talking about physical therapy and she's talking about the dilator she has to use. And she's like thinking about how crazy it is that she has to compare the medical tool she's using to penis size. Like she's just overthinking, oversharing, and in Emma's voice, that comes out as funny most of the time.
Oh my God, all of the time.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously she has her real issues, but yeah,
she
no,
sure
because
does.
yeah, like I like, I mean, I think that like it is also a common experience to just like be in your head a lot, like
Mhm.
with dealing with pelvic pain, and like it's interesting because like I think a common excuse that medical providers have given people or other people who don't understand is, well, the pain you feel is all in your head, and
Yeah.
it sucks because it's like, okay, there is a lot going on in your head, a
Hmm.
100%, but there's also a lot going on physically and you can't just
You
ignore
can't
the physic.
separate those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's not a lot of medical research on what causes vaginismus. No one really knows how it happens, but
Hmm.
there are definitely factors that contribute to it. And a lot of those are mental, right? They're not
Hmm.
understanding your body. They might be like some kind of trauma that you experienced in the past that is not necessarily physical. But at the end of the day, they still have physical effects on your body. And for most people, treating those 100% with like talk therapy is not going to change the physical reaction that their body has already learned to have. And
Hmm.
that's certainly the
Hmm.
case with Emma.
Yeah. So also with like the overthinking part, which is something that I really liked about this book. I really related to Emma, like maybe too much. I was like, is this me? Um, but there's something that you include in the book that I thought was really adorable is that she keeps a list of like the facial tells of the love
Yeah.
interest. And you have like a really cute kind of what's the word? Not gimmick, but ongoing
It's
kind
like a
of thing.
shtick. Yeah.
Yes, shtick. That's the right word. That's the word. Yes, where there's like footnotes of like what Harrison's like facial tells are, and it's like a definition. How did you come up with that? Because it was so cute.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I keep getting asked that, and it's actually been in the book for so long that I do not remember what originally inspired it. Honest to
Hmm.
God, I have no idea.
Hmm.
So it was like, I think from draft two on, it's been in there. So for years. I think it originally came from like, I've read so many second chance romances, so many friends to lovers romances, and a lot of them, and this is not necessarily a complaint because I love this, but they describe the experience of knowing someone very well in similar ways. Like, you know what their coffee order is, you know, like how they look when they're upset and nobody else knows that. You know, like, whatever, these really specific things about them. And so I wanted to be able to kind of demonstrate that in a fun, new, exciting way that, I hadn't seen before. And so that's the impetus for these footnotes. They, I love them.
Hmm.
I had so much fun writing them. I had like a running Word doc on, a different tab on my computer, keeping track of all of these facial expressions I had described. They're formatted like dictionary entries. And I, in fact, liked them so much that I built some things about Emma's character around wanting to use that. So, like, Emma in the draft that was published is a former middle school English teacher. I decided that so that the footnotes would make more sense. So
Right.
like
Yeah.
that became part of her character because of that.
Hmm.
But I love the way, especially since at the beginning of the novel, she hasn't seen Harrison for 5 years. I
Hmm.
love the way it demonstrates like how intimately she really knew him and how even with 5 years, that doesn't fade.
Hmm. Right. And it also like it makes a lot of sense because it's not even just like, the footnote definitions, but the way that she thinks in like lists and
Hmm.
like we all like I mean I know a lot of people like we all like use Microsoft Word and Excel and all this stuff and it's like it makes sense that our thoughts can kind of like be determined or like be seen as data. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, no, and yes, she's big on to-do lists and she loves making lists to accomplish things because I think it helps her feel like she's a little more control, even
Hmm.
when most of the time she feels like she's not in control of what's happening in her body and in her life. And so I think that the footnotes with the dictionary definitions kind of fall in the same category as like
Hmm.
something that Emma does in her brain to make her feel a little more organized.
Right. Yeah. It's helpful because it's like it's interesting because like it almost feels like so transactional, but it's actually the most personal.
Yes, it's so personal. And there's this scene that I loved writing where she thinks about how when you know someone very well, you have like a secret language with them where like you can make eye contact and you immediately know what that person is thinking and what they're trying to say to you. And at
Hmm.
the beginning of the novel, this is not a spoiler because it's right at the beginning, Harrison is dating this other girl, and Emma talks about the loss that she feels seeing him have like an unspoken language with someone else because it's
Mm.
so intimate and like when you see people make eye contact and a thousand thoughts pass between them, like you also learn something about their relationship, and so that's also in the same vein.
Yeah, totally. It makes me think of like the stakes in a friends to lovers kind of trope or a
Hmm.
second chance kind of trope because like it's interesting with like for me like on the surface when I think of like enemies to lovers I'm like well the stakes are higher because they're literal
Hmm.
enemies, how are they going to become lovers? With friends to lovers and I'm like well they're already friends, whatever, but you still have to make like these like really essential like stakes of like they could really screw this up, and I feel like in this book like the friendship of it all really was the stakes of it all, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think friends to lovers is my favorite trope to read in a romance novel, but I also think it's the hardest to do right because you have to really get the reader to believe that these people have been friends for 10 years and they have never slept together. They've
Right.
never even thought about it. Or maybe they
Uh-huh.
have thought about it, but they haven't acted on it.
Hmm.
Like, there has to be a very clear reason, a very convincing reason why they were friends for that long and did not get together. And so, in Emma's case, obviously the reader understands that she has this like medical condition that she doesn't know how to deal with that has prevented her from being like emotionally available in the dating space. But it's it's hard to write. It's hard to come up with that in a way that like with enemies to lovers, you just come up with a reason that they hate each other. Which is not
Right.
to say that that's easy either, but
Of course not. It's just different because it
it's
feels
different.
like we all have friends and maybe a few of us have enemies, and so
Mm,
it's like, oh, okay, we know what it's like to have friends and like make and like it kind of gets not. I mean this in a good way, like icky thinking about like, oh, how could I lose a friend? You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah. And I think what is special about this book is you kind of see what the stakes are if they mess this up because they did mess it up at the end of college. And you see
Yeah.
that in some flashbacks. You see that in the way Emma talks about, you know, the last 5 years and the hurt she feels having not had Harrison in her life. And Harrison says the same thing about like how hard it's been to feel like you're missing a part of yourself. So
Hmm.
we see on page what happens when they screw it up. And so Emma knows, like, if I'm going to go into this a second time, I can't let that happen again because it'll be even more painful knowing that, like, I did not learn my lesson.
Hmm. It felt like there were times where Emma was really taking the entire blame for the dissolution of their friendship. And I just like wanted to like hug her sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to hug her, but like low key, she was 99% at fault. So,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is difficult because like it's hard for me not to like reflect back on my own life and think about like okay, the decisions that I've made in terms of because of the pelvic pain, like oh,
mhm.
who could I have hurt? Like who are the people that
Who did I
I
push
push
away?
away?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then just like realizing like oh, yeah, like it's it's such a problem that our society emphasizes P and V sex that it makes like other people feel less than and
Yeah.
not good enough if they can't do
Right, right.
XYZ.
And I think, I said it's 99% Emma's fault, but it also I think a lot of that is out of her control.
Yeah.
She was like 18 years old, then she was 20 years old. Like she didn't have the tools to deal with something as difficult as this. So,
No, no, yeah.
I think if it had been up to Harrison, they would not have gotten into a fight because he was a lot more, emotionally mature than Emma was as a teenager, which
Right, yeah.
I love about him. But yeah, she just doesn't have the tools, and I can't blame her for that. And I hope readers don't blame her for that either.
No, of course not. Because, like, I think we're taught that, like, guys are dogs, and even the best guys, they're gonna be dogs when it comes to sex. Like, that was always the thing. Like, and then, like, kind of this book made me realize, like, oh no, there are people too, and there's decent people, and, like, men
Yeah.
can, hashtag not all men, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
Another thing that like growing up, not growing up, but like becoming a young adult and dealing with like figuring out who I am in terms of like having the pelvic pain, and I think something that was very significant in this book is that she has this one line where she's like, I think about sex all the time. And the amount of time I spend thinking about sex versus actually having sex, like the balance between that is like so vast. And I was like, oh, I relate to that a lot. And I think a lot of people going through this relate to that a lot.
Yeah, it just lives rent free in her mind. Like that's the unspoken subtext in all of her medical appointments about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time she does pelvic floor therapy, every time she talks to Harrison, this is in the back of her mind. And she says at one point that it's like being horny all the time, but she doesn't actually want to have sex because it would hurt.
Yes.
And so
Mm-hmm.
she just like doesn't know how to wrap her mind around all of those conflicting desires and like the desire to be intimate with someone but also the desire to like literally not be in pain
Mm-hmm.
and they're conflicting and she doesn't know how to deal with that conflict so it's hard.
Yeah. But I also like, I will say this, like there was a time where, because like again, I'm a bit older, I'm in my 40s now. I was going through this thing where like no one knew what was going on with me, blah blah blah. There was always this assumption that I was either like not frigid but just not horny, and
Yeah.
also an infant in a way that,
Hmm.
I felt like I felt infantilized a lot, during my like, oh well, maybe you just don't want to have sex because you're too scared, or like,
Yeah.
or it's like that kind of thing. And but of course, like, I'd read romance, or I'd like be a human being in this world, and I would have crushes and fantasies and all of this stuff. And so like it kind of like made me like walk this lifeline of like, just I'm just confused, like my I'm so confused by like who I am and what's going on. So it was really nice to see how horny she was.
Yes.
You
No,
know what I
she
mean?
was just like, she was jealous of other people because they didn't have to deal with this.
Hmm.
She was like mad at herself and just mad generally that this was happening. She felt like she'd let herself down. She was just desperate for physical intimacy
Hmm.
because, and the thing is, like, the first time she went through this with Harrison, and when she was first diagnosed, she was like in her late teens and then through early 20s. And now she's 27, so she feels like she's even more behind, right? So, like,
Hmm.
it's no longer just telling Harrison or like telling her loved ones that she has this condition and doesn't know how to deal with it. It's telling them, like, now I'm age 27 and I feel like I'm behind everybody else because I'm still a virgin.
Hmm.
Right? And like
Hmm.
she doesn't even put that much stake in her virginity because she understands that there are other factors in play, but
Sure.
she still feels like by telling someone that she's exposing something about herself that wasn't, quite the same as when she was 19.
Right, yeah. Because I just feel like there's a timeline branded into our brains of like, when is the
Yes.
appropriate time to lose your virginity? And also like, when's the appropriate time to like insert something in, like it
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
weird kind of thing.
Yeah, and she just really holds herself to those unfair expectations. She
Hmm.
beats herself up over it. And
Yeah,
that's tough.
it is tough. But it's so relatable. It's absolutely relatable, even with like, we all have bodies, and we all have issues going on with our bodies, and we all are, I think any human being was always going to find ways to kind of get down on themselves about realizing like why I'm not enough. And sometimes like with certain conditions, it's like, well, your internal predator is like, this is easy. I here's
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, you gotta learn to be gentle with yourself, and
Hmm.
99% of us are not good at like being gentle with our
Right.
feelings, and every character in a book goes through that in a different way.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of every character in every book, I want to hear about your journey to becoming a writer, to writing this book. You were born and then you wrote Thighs Wide Shut. Give us a summary of what happened in between.
Absolutely. So, let's see. I am originally from Florida, although
Hmm.
now I live in DC. I always loved writing as a kid. My dad is a creative writing professor, and my mom published a novel when she was pregnant with me. So it's like in my blood to
Two
love
babies at
writing.
once. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
So I grew up around other writers and English professors, and I grew up going to book talks and all that good stuff. So I loved like writing short stories as a kid. I was the president of my high school's creative writing club. And then I went to college and I was like, actually, I don't want to be a writer. Like, I want to have a real job. Like, I want to be
Hmm.
employed one day. So I stopped
Smart.
writing.
Hmm.
And then when I graduated from college and got like a big girl job, I was like, wait, actually, I want to do both of those things. So I, finally had time in the evenings again to start reading for pleasure. And I started reading romance novels for the first time. And then I was like, oh, wait, like this is really compelling to me. Like, this is interesting. It feels like an interesting intellectual exercise to write this and like put all the puzzle pieces together in a way that keeps it interesting for the reader, even though you know how it's going to end. Like, I
Hmm.
just think
Hmm.
that that as a concept is so interesting. And so I started writing Thighs Wide Shut like 5 years ago. It was the first full-length novel I ever tried to write. The first several drafts were absolute trash, but I kept going because I was
Hmm.
obsessed with it, and I was like, this story has to be told. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it has to be told, and I have to get this out of my brain. So I just became obsessive about it, worked on it for years, didn't take no for an answer, and then
Hmm.
finally got a book deal.
Yeah. So when you were like pitching and getting this book deal, like how what were some of the challenges? Because this is such a it's a condition that not a lot of people know about, let alone in a genre where like pleasure can be kind of key to the
Yeah.
success of a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was really important to me and to my agent to find an editor and an imprint who really got it. Like
Yeah.
wanted to put it out there for the reasons that I thought it was important. So we for sure heard from some editors. They were like, we really prioritize novels with a lot of spice in it, and this doesn't have that like to the threshold we want it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
great job totally missing the point of this book.
Right.
Right? So like
Exactly. Yeah.
I got really lucky that I found an editor and an imprint at my publisher that was enthusiastic about this because it does add something very new to the genre and like shows intimacy in a different way than a lot of other romance novels. So that was really important to me, and I lucked out finding someone else who also thought that was important.
Hey everyone, Becky here. As an independent podcaster, I really appreciate your support just by listening to TSTL. But if you want your support to go a little further, you can actually buy TSTL a happy ending. Not that kind of happy ending. On TSTL's Buy Me a Coffee page, happy endings are small donations that all go to keeping the show up and running. In return for your generosity, you can get a shout out on the show, TSTL bookmarks in the mail, TSTL stickers in the mail that you can use as a bookmark. Listen, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just here to tell you to visit buymeacoffee.com/TSTL podcast. So, like, I'm assuming, like, you obviously have other books coming out. Like, do you plan on, like, kind of like are you making it kind of your thing to include maybe like invisible conditions as like part of that character journey, or like what's the Hayley Fleming like kind of brand these days?
I no, I love that question. I am in the depths of finishing my second book. It's due in like a month and a half, and it's
Hmm.
all I think about 98% of the time.
Hmm.
I think I would say that my brand is like quarter life crisis
Yeah.
characters. So like late 20s characters, mid to late 20s characters who are going through something life altering and are not equipped to deal with that.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
that I would say is the similarity between my two books. I would also say that there's the same kind of absurdist humor in my second book, just because I
Hmm.
have a lot of fun writing that.
Hmm.
I think I will always like look at intimacy with a critical lens in all of my books, although like vaginismus is not in my second book. They still talk about like how intimacy has shaped them and how they view it. So, those three things are still really important to me as I'm working on my next novel.
That's great. It just like kind of I don't know if you've been on the whole off-campus craze with this show and the
I
books.
haven't seen it, actually. I know
Okay.
I don't watch a
Yeah.
lot of TV when I'm writing, and I've been on
Makes sense.
deadline for the last like year constantly, so
Hmm.
I'm behind.
Well, here's the thing. One, I respect your sense of discipline, and if I had that, I
Thank you.
would probably be way more. No, but it's interesting because like there is a character in off campus who they don't like say the exact diagnosis, but she does have trouble like reaching orgasm. There's
Hmm.
she doesn't it's not because of vaginismus or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. And I think that there's like a particular moment that I think a lot of people, for me, having pelvic pain, I related to it. I think other women and other people who don't have anything like physical related to it, of just like kind of hearing like your love interest say you're not broken during an intimate moment is something that I
My
think is
God, I gotta
so,
watch
yeah,
this.
see, is something I'm so, I feel like I'm spoiling like a huge part, but I like watched it
No,
like
it's
three
fine.
times
Yeah.
and I'm like, these kids are like 20 years younger than me, and I'm like crying because they're more mature than me, and like and it's
Listen,
yeah.
that's impressive for a 20-year-old because that takes a lot of emotional maturity to like come
Yes.
to that point where you realize that.
I'm still waiting to hear it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
well, I mean, that's why I love Elle Kennedy as an author so much, is because like I'm like none of these. She writes like college students, and they are all like mid 30s to 40s, and like the
Yeah.
music they like and how they talk, and I'm like, I love this.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing.
But it
Yeah,
is, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
it's just so special when you do see moments like that in
Mm-hmm.
pop culture. Like um I remember when I don't remember what season of Sex Education it is where the girl has
Mm-hmm.
vaginismus, but I remember watching that and being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that was the first time I'd ever seen that represented. And
Mm-hmm.
so just having those moments where characters say things that you need to hear, or characters are experiencing things that you have never seen in common with any other characters, like that's so special.
100%. And I think it is nice to kind of see these like nuances, particularly in intimacy, because like
Hmm.
it's so, I don't know, like I consume a lot of books, I watch a lot. I just love media, I guess. And I love horny media. And and it just like it makes the sex seem so easy for all of these characters because it's an easy plot point, it's an easy way to show character development, and showing any nuance in terms of like intimacy issues during it, it just creates, it's like you never see it a lot, but to see
Yeah.
it in a especially particularly in a genre where intimacy and pleasure is so celebrated,
Hmm.
it's huge for a lot of readers.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons I was nervous about this book, is because like even when you see characters using birth control, that's kind of a big deal. So I was like, how are readers going to react when like this thing that's so integral to the genre looks so different in this book? Like, is that still
Mm-hmm.
going to be compelling to them? And thankfully, it seems like it has been. But like you said, like intimacy, physical intimacy is such an important integral part of the genre. So it's a big deal when you see it represented differently.
Yeah. And I will say, I know I'm kind of maybe spoiling it a little bit. So if you're like, Becky, edit this out, like I don't. But I think that there's something very emotionally touching about this book in terms of like, for Emma, in Emma's story, she has a partner, and like and it's a happily ever after, obviously, and she's gonna have a partner, through each step that she goes through in order
Hmm.
to heal and to treat herself. And I still think, I'm a patient advocate for a lot of, and I'm part of a group for people who have chronic pelvic pain,
Hmm.
and even people in relationships. I'm single, but like it is kind of like when they do their treatment, it feels very much they're alone, and their husband is, or their partner is just like at home
Yeah.
trying to be supportive as they do their thing. And there's a moment in this book where she, like, I think a lot of us are like, oh, we wish people could be more empathetic, but in your book you see him being proud, and that was just mind-blowing to me, because like I was like, oh, like I because I kind of wanted to, I like, I'm gonna text everyone, I'm like, read this book. Like,
Oh,
um but it
yeah.
is, it was very like compelling, because it is such a weird thing, and does, and I think it 100% depends on the relationship, obviously, and the person you're with and what you need. But to see someone like being really proud of this work who doesn't even have a vagina, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it is kind of mind blowing.
Okay, I'm gonna shout out my fiance here. I wrote that in because that's what he was like when I was
Hmm.
going through this.
Yeah.
And like you just can't ask for anything better than that, right? Like someone who understands how difficult it is
Hmm.
empathetic about that. Like I wanted that for Emma. I
Yeah.
wanted her to have a partner who
Hmm.
did that. And when she finally tells him, he's kind of angry for different reasons, but he's also like, you're fucking awesome. Like you're amazing.
Yeah.
And I just she deserves that, and readers deserved to see someone who reacted that way.
100%. And I also think it's like the blueprint for, kind of it, like if you are dealing with some certain issue and you fear that it might impact like kind of your romantic or intimate like kind of journey, like seeing a blueprint of like you deserve a teammate and you deserve a cheerleader. Like for the longest time in my life, all I wanted to hear was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. That like must really suck for you." End of sentence. But like
Yeah.
and I heard not
And
that at
you
all.
do want to, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You want to hear that from some people. You want to hear that,
Absolutely.
wow,
Yeah.
like that sucks. I'm
Mhm.
amazed you can get through the day. Like
Yeah.
sometimes that's what you need to hear.
And then when
Uh,
you like try something and you like even for like this slightest amount of like progression that you make, whether it is like full insertion or I don't even know, like you did yoga today, like any sort of
mhm.
kind of step forward that you're taking. Because, I think a lot of people like run into not hiccups, but setbacks. And, it depends on as your body changes, things change, whatever.
Yeah.
Just having a cheerleader by your side, just understanding that, like, yeah, you don't have a vagina, that we get that, but you
Yeah.
also understand how difficult this is. You just know that it is difficult. And it's like, oh, that's what we need. Not just someone who's empathetic in terms of how much it sucks, but empathetic in terms of like how amazing it is when you make improvements.
Yeah.
Any
And
improvement.
I think that's so important when you're not able to think those thoughts yourself. Like when you don't
Mm-hmm.
come naturally to those thoughts of being like, I went to yoga today, I'm so proud of myself. Like that was really healthy for my pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like for me, I had to hear like friends and a partner say that in order to have that mindset switch. And so just having people in your corner who can be proud of you and say those things is just essential.
Totally. Because there are a lot of people, and I can speak to that. There are a lot of people out there who kind of will see that situation and kind of not understand it, and maybe like some of the more toxic traits will come out. There are a lot of assholes out there,
Hmm.
I guess is my point.
Yes, yeah,
And it is pretty hard because like I very much wanted to date casually. Like
yeah,
I enjoy that, but then realizing that like, oh, that's actually like pretty hard to do
yeah.
when my body doesn't want to
Oh
date
my God,
casually,
yeah,
but my brain
yeah.
does, you know?
Right, and that's like right. Emma has these moments where she's like, "What am I gonna do? Date? What am I gonna do? Get on a dating app?" And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can't like she can't do that the way that she wishes she could. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I have friends and have heard from people who talk about having partners who are like, "I thought you were working on fixing that.
Yeah.
Like I thought you were gonna work on that." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go fix that then." Like
Yeah.
like what am I supposed to do? Just
I was seeing
no
someone
idea.
who would text me beforehand, "How's your therapy going?" And if like I said good or
Horrible.
bad, then he wouldn't meet up. And I felt, that happened for like years. It was just like someone I knew. And seeing Harrison, like seeing how he treats her, and then like it did make me think about how terrible that person was, or just based on his own misunderstanding, and like just being like, I so did not deserve that, and like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. And but thinking back then, I was beholden to giving anyone any hole,
Yeah,
like
man. Oh, yeah, it's crazy out there.
it's
People be saying crazy things about vaginas.
yes, crazy things about vaginas, like, and it's also like, I mean, like, I don't know if you've run into this, but like sometimes, like when I talk about, like, I've done a one person show, and I've done this about all this stuff with pelvic pain, and like, you're in a conversation, you're having like and they're like, oh, what's your book about, or what's your show about, and then you say this, and then they're like, oh, whoa, oh yeah, no, that's real. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah.
seeing them get into their little like well of panic because they don't know how to
Yup.
respond is very
Yup.
fun.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so like desensitized to talking about my vagina. Like I'd be texting friends about my pelvic floor therapy.
Hmm.
I would be like, I'm writing this novel, like, will you read 300 pages about vaginismus? Like,
Hmm.
I have no filter about it, but I think that's good for me. I
I think
think
we
that's
need it.
healing. We
Yeah,
need it.
we absolutely need it because it's just like, if there's like there is that metaphor of the wall,
Mhm.
physically it feels like, but it also there is a wall between like you were saying, like with like sex education and like kind of our own like society's stigma against it. That's a metaphorical wall, if you will.
Yep. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think writing this book in a lot of ways forced me to tear down that wall because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I want to publish this book. If I ever publish this book, I have to be completely okay with talking about vaginismus in any forum that will let me talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel great about that. But
Yeah.
it took years to get
Mm-hmm.
there.
For sure. So yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what is that like to you? Are you like becoming the? I was about to say vagina whisperer, but that's already someone
No,
on Instagram. Um, but like, because like sometimes like I'll like get a text like, from a friend or something like, "Hey, did you hear about this lube?" And I'm like, "Yeah," you know what I mean? Like it's like
uh-huh.
suddenly you're this expert, and like,
Yeah, that feels a little crazy. There
hmm
wasn't there was an article published last week that described my book as like the representation of vaginismus in pop culture. I'm like,
mm,
that's actually a crazy take. Like, go watch Sex Education. But,
right.
I also I love that because that's what I wanted it to be. Like, I want people who think they might have vaginismus or do have it and have never seen themselves represented to be able to like Google like where do I find this in a book or
hmm
whatever, and then be able to pick up my book. But that does feel kind of crazy. I have no medical background. Sometimes people are like, oh, like blah, blah, blah. Like, does this happen? I'm like, I don't know. You should go talk to a doctor. Like, I don't know anything about that. Like,
Yeah.
this is based on my experience, the research that I did.
hmm
Um, but it is kind of crazy to find myself in that position.
It's like it's interesting because again, I think a lot of people who go through this, like you do have to you are being your own advocate, and you do find yourself kind of more like well informed about like mast cells and like you know vestibules than like maybe your average person who doesn't go through this and isn't a doctor, just
Yeah.
based on your experiences. Um but it's interesting because like going back to like kind of the stigma and what people don't know, what they don't not know. um in your book, you're from DC, and I my first thought is like, oh, I wonder if like there's like any sort of like political motivation there, particularly with this book, in terms of not only just like writing about like vaginismus, but also you have the subplot of her starting a banned book club, and I'm just
Yes.
like curious like how much like politics and what you were saying about sex education, like how much politics comes, like how much of like the this discourse, how much did it like impact this book in particular?
I'd say quite a lot, although I wish it didn't. I think so I grew up in Florida. So
Mm-hmm.
like Emma's backstory of being from Florida and getting like 1 hour of sex education in her Florida public schools is my childhood
God, yeah.
story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like I got literally 1 hour of sex education in fourth grade where they told us we were going to start our periods. Like we were going to start bleeding from a mysterious location. We were going to grow boobs, end of story. And
Mm-hmm.
then like no one ever taught me about condoms. No one ever taught me about STIs. Like I learned about the reproductive system in my AP bio class and had only the faintest idea of like how, the illustrated diagrams in my textbook actually connected to what was going through my body on a monthly cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So I am extremely passionate about sex education. I think that like comprehensive sex education for all students would solve like a world of problems.
Mm-hmm. Sure, sure.
And especially now, like even in the last year, sex education is being defunded. It's being attacked in a way it never has before. And that makes me so mad as someone who had very real, like, life impacts from not getting sex education. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
know that my life would have been different if I had been told, even from a younger age, like, hey, it's not normal that when you try to put in a tampon, you want to scream out in pain. Like
Yeah.
if I had even had the knowledge or the words to understand that like that was something I should be talking to a medical professional about, my life would have been very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm on like a tangent, but I just it's so political, even though it shouldn't be. Comprehensive sex education is like data backed, it works, it prevents teen pregnancies, like all of the things. And it's really sad that students across the country like Emma don't get it and
Yeah.
then have to deal with the effects of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's also like kind of refreshing to see, this book because like there are going to be a lot of adults or a lot of young adults entering into their adulthood journeys not knowing and feeling like an idiot. Like I didn't know like they never told me what a clitoris was. I didn't like I
Oh my
used to
God,
like
no.
do you know what I mean? And
No,
it's
no,
like
no. Yeah.
we all had to like learn that on our own a little bit, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
And then you like feel like an idiot, because you're like, oh, that's what that is. You have your first
Oh
orgasm, and
yeah.
you're like, that's what that is. Um, and
No
and
idea. Yeah.
and it's like, okay, maybe that's a part of becoming an adult is just that idiotic feeling because you had shitty sex education.
It's insane. I had this crazy experience a few months ago. My fiance and I binged all of The Pit, and there's a
hmm
childbirth scene, and I was watching it, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "I've literally never seen a video of someone giving birth." And he was like, "You didn't watch that in school?" I'm like, "I didn't watch that in school. Did you watch that in school?" I had no idea that that was something that people were shown in sex education,
we
and like,
Yeah. We watched a documentary called The Miracle of Life, but I think they might have fast forwarded through
classic.
the birth part. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
it was like graphic. Yeah.
Yeah, I just every day am learning something new. Like I have a close friend who's pregnant right now and she's due next week, and
hmm
she tells me things about pregnancy and about childbirth that I in my wildest dreams could not have imagined. Like I have no idea and I learn something new every day and then I'm like, wow, I wish I'd learned this when I was 16.
Yeah, there's like so much body stuff, like in like even prepartum and postpartum, or just like
Hmm.
like I think like especially when it comes to going to seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist versus a gynecologist, having like going to a pelvic floor physical therapist is for the first time is like mind-blowing because it's like, oh, there's a lot more going on down there than my
Yep.
gynecologist has informed me of.
Yeah. And I think, you asked me about kind of becoming a face of this in the book in some ways. And I was like, oh, I'm not a medical professional. But the reality is that a lot of people are going to learn more about vaginismus from this book than from what their doctor told them. Like, I think
Yes.
I write in the author's note about how the first time I went to the gynecologist and it was clear that something was like very wrong. Like we could not get through the exam. I was crying. They handed me an apple juice box. They like handed me a piece of paper with a referral to a pelvic floor therapist. They did not say the word vaginismus to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then like I went to this pelvic floor therapist. They were like, just do Kegels, you'll be fine. We paid like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of dollars for that. They did not say the word vaginismus to me. And then it wasn't until I went to a different pelvic floor therapist that they were like, oh, right, like you have vaginismus, let's work through this. And I was like, I have never heard that word before.
Yeah.
And then later, like I found the medical chart from that first gynecology appointment and saw that they had checked off the word vaginismus and they just didn't say it
Wow.
out loud. So I'm like, you know, a lot of people, like when I tell people that, they're like, oh, same thing happened to me. Or like, yeah, like they told me that I had it. I had no idea what it was. Um, and so I'm not a medical professional, but also a lot of people are going to learn things from this book, hopefully, that no one ever bothered to tell them,
Right.
which sucks, but I'm also glad now that I was able to publish this and have it be another resource for people who have trouble getting the information they need about
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like it's like I was speaking to or like hearing this gynecologist speak one time, and this is an OBGYN, and I think like our first thought is if something is feeling not right, we think go to an OBGYN. Like no
Hmm.
one. I mean, I didn't even know physical therapy like even existed until maybe 10 years
Yeah.
ago or something. So you go and then talking to like an OBGYN and seeing like their caseload and like seeing they only have like 5 minutes to have like real conversations with each patient, because they're just like the way that the American medical system is, the way that they're double booked, triple booked all the time, and they only
Hmm.
have so much time. They are pretty much in and out in order to like make rent on their office building. So it is like understandable that they only can do so much, but there is just like it is a systemic kind of thing that ultimately affects people who have similar stories to Emma, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I go to a gynecologist now who I love. Like she is my ride or die, but also sometimes I'll go in for my annual and I'll be like, "Can you explain this to me?" And she'll be like, "I don't have enough time to explain that to you during an annual exam. Like I can give you the high level points in the next 5 minutes, but
Hmm.
like if you really want to get into that and talk about that, like we're gonna have to schedule a separate appointment." And I
Yeah.
don't blame her,
Hmm.
but it's hard to get the info you need, and I wish I had a gynecologist on speed dial. I wish I had all sorts of doctors on speed dial, but I have better access to doctors than most people do, and I still have trouble getting information.
Yeah, totally, 100%. Yeah, because it is, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a very common thing. I want to jump ship a bit. You have
Yeah.
another very cute kind of shtick in this book of she uses dilators, and she names her dilators, and you kind of give her dilators like a bit of a personality in this book, which I really liked. How did you come up with that idea?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that all stemmed from the idea that I wanted it to be kind of funny and accessible to people who maybe had never like heard of dilators being used in this context before.
Mm-hmm.
So um, the dilators, she gets a set of four of them. They are all different pastel colors, which is what my
Cute.
set of dilators was.
Nice.
So all different pastel colors. Love that. And they kind of develop different personalities in her mind, and then that evolved such that in the final version she has like mental conversations with these dilators. Not while
Mm-hmm.
they're inside of her. That was a line that I drew. I did not feel like that would that
Fair.
would be
Yeah.
fun for readers to read.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes like when she's at the doctor or she's like, "Oh, I should go on a date with this guy." She hears the dilators in her mind being like, how do you think that's going to go based on how pelvic floor therapy is going? So,
Mm-hmm.
they developed their own personalities. Uh, for anyone here who is going to read Thighs Wide Shut after this, hopefully, recommend you check out the audiobook. The narrator, with no notes from me, used hilarious accents for the
That's awesome.
dilators. Um,
Amazing.
so like the two largest ones are the ones that Emma has conversations with in her mind.
Mm-hmm.
The second to largest one is named Key Lime,
Mm-hmm.
and uh Key Lime in the audiobook has this like mob boss voice, and then Cob no. What's the biggest one? I don't remember. It changed
Mm-hmm.
names. The biggest one has this like really sultry, sexy voice. And so I DM'd the narrator on Instagram and I was like, "This is hysterical. How did
Mm-hmm.
you come up with this?" And she said that the second to largest one is like a mob boss because you have to get through that one to get to the largest one. And then the
Yes.
largest,
Yeah.
yeah, and then the
Mm-hmm.
largest one is inspired by Marilyn Monroe because it's like unattainable sexuality. And I was like,
Yeah.
"You are an artist.
That is
Amazing."
brilliant. Oh my God. I love this. Okay. I have a question for you, and you can tell me to
Yeah.
fuck off. I have my old set of dilators right here. Do you want to name them for me? I have the
Oh,
shitty plastic ones from 1987. No, that's I mean, but can you name? I'm going to show you each one, and I'm probably going to get tagged on YouTube for selling sex for asking you to
okay.
do this.
No,
But
I love it.
listen, I will say, can you name
This
my
is a lot of
dilators for
pressure.
me?
Yeah.
Okay, here is the smallest one. Wait, they're all gonna fall. They always fall
That's
like and make a hilarious sound.
I
This
love
is a
that.
small one. It's like kind of like the size of maybe like a tampon or something. Can you give this one a
Okay.
name for me?
I'm gonna call that one Tiptoe because it's
Tiptoe.
it's just like small. It's kind of dainty.
Mm-hmm.
Although, as Emma discusses, the small ones don't feel that small when you're trying to use them. But I'm gonna call that one Tiptoe.
Tiptoe. I love it. This is perfect. Okay. Do 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 do. Okay. It's so
It's
hard for me
tiptoeing
not to
away.
like dick around with these. Okay. All
This
right.
is
This
hard
is
because
the
they don't have colors.
I know, I hate that because like I had like we didn't like by we I mean me when I first found out about vaginismus like there was like only like so much out there and now there's like so much stuff that like people can do but like we just had these like plastic medical looking stuff and I never was like
Horrible.
let me get more because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it
yeah.
was like I'm not spending any more
You don't
money on
want
this.
to, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't want to upgrade your dilators.
I don't know. Okay, this is about the size of I want to say like a Sharpie marker. Um
Ooh.
yes. What should I name this one?
What's tough about this is
Hmm.
that they all are shaped like bullets, but
Yes.
that's so violent. Like I don't want to name it
You can
bullet.
name a bullet because, like, there's the magic bullet, which is that vibrating thingy. So,
Oh,
bullets
I
can,
like that. I feel
yeah.
like for that size,
Hmm.
we're gonna call that one magic bullet. But then that's
Magic
gonna be the
bullet.
last one with like any violent connotations.
Okay, yeah, you're the so this one's the final violence. Boop 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 boop
Yeah.
boop boop boop. Okay, I don't know why I'm doing it like that. Like I'm playing dolls with my knees. Okay, this is the next one. I will say it's slightly thicker. It's the third in
Mm-hmm.
line. I guess like width
Mm-hmm.
wise, it's like maybe the width of I don't know, like a thin tube of lipstick or something. Maybe a little bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that for some reason, like it feels like the size of something you'd use in a kitchen. Like it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like it feels like a piece of cutlery. It's that
Yeah, like
it looks that way in
spatula.
your
Yeah.
hand. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like what's a kitchen related word?
Kitchen related
Um
word.
like um
What about like chef? Oh my god, this was
a
you.
chef?
This
Oh,
was something that you were
that's funny.
supposed to do, and I like started doing it. But like maybe like just like chef. But I don't know. I
I
don't know if I
like
like
no, I
that.
like that.
Okay.
I think I like that. Or it's like
Okay.
sous chef maybe, because it's not the
Sous
biggest, it's like
chef.
helpful. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Cause
Okay, I
like
actually really
and
like
yeah.
that.
Okay. Sous
Okay,
chef.
teamwork, teamwork.
Teamwork.
So we
Okay.
got we
And
got tiptoe, magic bullet,
tiptoe
sous chef.
and sous chef. Okay. This is the second to last. So this would be your either cobalt or key lime.
Hmm.
What this is my second to last. We're getting bigger. We are getting bigger.
Yeah, that one's looking like the size of a banana to me,
Okay.
but I don't want to just call it banana, so I think that one's name is Bananagram.
Bananagram. I like
Yeah.
it. I do like it. I feel like I need to like write name tags on them. I'm gonna do that after this. Just write their names. Okay. And now we finally have our final guy. The final. This is like supposedly the average size of a penis, I
Hmm.
guess.
Hmm.
Which
Yeah.
whatever the fuck that means. Um
So that one to me is
mhm,
giving like a rocket ship. Like it's the biggest one. It
mhm.
looks like it can fly through space. So I feel like it needs to have a space themed name.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm between Jupiter and Orion. Which one do you like?
Ooh, I think has to be Jupiter because he's like
Okay.
the king of the dilators,
Hmm.
and Jupiter was the
Yeah.
king of the Roman gods.
Yeah.
This
I
is the
like that.
Jupiter of dilators.
Right.
Thank you so much for helping me name them.
This was a delight. These I actually like these names a lot better than the color names in Thighs Wide Shut. Like now I'm like, that's boring. That's lame. I
Well,
could have named them Tiptoe.
Tiptoe is very cute. Like, listen, you could like go around and be like, hey, let me name your dilator. Like, to offer it as a
Hmm.
service, because like I wouldn't. I feel like now that they have names, like they are more personal to me. They're not just these
Yeah. You're a
plastic.
little more
Yeah,
compelled by them.
yeah,
And
yeah. And
yeah.
they're.
So
I mean,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah, maybe that's like my number one tip as someone with vaginismus is just make your dilators a little more interesting to use. Spice it up
Yes.
a tiny bit.
Yes.
Not too much,
Not too much.
but
But
just
it's your time. It's your
yeah.
time, and if you're
Hmm.
when you're using them. And so yeah, why not make it all about you and give them
Yeah.
names.
God, now I'm like, I need to go try to figure out where my old dilators are. The biggest one was purple. I remember that.
Yeah.
There's no telling where they landed, but
I definitely had to dig through a lot of shit to find these this morning. I
no, I
hadn't
I love that you did that.
because I was like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, would that be funny? And then I was like, shit, I have no idea where they are. Like they were, they could be next to like my third grade diary, and I
Yeah. And
cannot
and what
believe.
does that say about us? That
Yes,
neither of us know where they
it's like I don't want to throw these out, but I also will never use
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay, well, Haley, before we let you go, tell us where we can find you online. Give us, yeah, like your screen name, things like that. But also remind us where we can purchase Thighs Wide Shut and what is coming up next for you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I'm most active on Instagram. You can follow me at Hayley Fleming Writes. I just made a TikTok account because I got stressed about promoting my book on social media and was like, I have to do more. So I have like
Mm.
40 followers on TikTok. If anyone wants to go help me get that number up a little bit, so I feel like I'm not screaming into the void.
Okay, I will
Um,
add your TikTok name to the
Thank
show
you so
notes, guys.
much.
Don't worry. Okay.
Yes, I do
Mm-hmm.
think it's Hayley Fleming Writes. So same as my Instagram handle.
Mm-hmm.
Thighs Wide Shut is available at most major bookstores. I keep popping into Barnes and Nobles and signing copies as I was on my tour. So maybe you'll pop into like a random Barnes and Noble in East Texas where I was visiting my grandmother last week and find a signed copy. But you
Ooh.
can also buy it anywhere online. And then my book that's coming out next summer, the first chapter is actually in the back of Thighs Wide Shut, so you can get a little preview. But it's based on a place in Florida, a real place. It's a state park where they have this underwater auditorium where you descend these steps. There's a glass wall that looks out into a natural spring, and then people dressed as mermaids do synchronized swimming shows. It's like an integral part of a Florida childhood. I'm obsessed with it. I wanted to be a mermaid when I was a kid because of this. And so this book is based on that. It's a fictionalized version of that setting, and the main character is a mermaid. And so I'm really excited about having a mermaid summer next year. I'm gearing up for that. Like
Hot mermaid
as soon as we
summer.
get to like February, March of next year, my social media is going to be 100% mermaid content.
Oh
So
my
if you
God.
follow me on social media, you have that to look forward to.
I cannot wait. As a fan, The Little Mermaid was my favorite movie growing up, and
Me too.
I love merman erotica. So like, here we go. It's
I
my
love that.
dream come true. A dream come true.
Yeah, if you have any
Yeah.
you'd like to recommend to me, like let me know.
Okay. Yes, I will
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, do I? Those mermen can get it on. And any sort of kraken or sea monster based, I'll read. But
Absolutely.
listen, Hayley, thank you so much for writing this book. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It was really such a delight to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely. This was so fun. This was a really therapeutic conversation. I had so much fun, and I hope that this like reaches the people who really need to see vaginismus misrepresented in pop culture. So, this was a delight.
Thank you so much for getting hot as hell with TSTL. I hope you have a humorously humid rest of your day. 'Cause I just can't make my eyes behave. Thank you so much for tuning in to TSTL. If you love the show, be sure to give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, comment on Spotify, and follow at TSTL Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And for you newsletter fans, TSTL is also on Substack where you can subscribe for free. There's also a paid subscription tier where you can get access to extended TSTL episodes without any ads or promos, like this one that you are listening to right now. Visit tstlpodcast.substack.com.